One evening, after rain, Rowan brought Elianor to the ruined observatory above the town. No one used it anymore, except owls, and children brave enough to lie about ghosts. From there, the canals looked like silver threads sewn through the dark. Eleanor stood at the broken window, her shawl moving in the wind. You disappear sometimes, Rowan said. She turned. I'm here. No, he said softly. You remain in the room, but that's different. Eleanor felt the words touch the fifth circle of her lake. The black reeds lifted their heads. I don't know what you mean, she said. Rowan looked down at his hands. I think you do. She smiled then. Small, perfect smile. The kind that she had learned long ago. The kind that closed gates while appearing to open them. Perhaps you're imagining things. The sleeping wolf in Rowan stirred. It whispered, Leave it. Do not need it. Do not ask. But Rowan did not leave it. I may be, he said. But when something hurts you, you become very gentle, like too gentle, like a door closing very, very quietly. Eleanor's face changed, only slightly. Anyone else would have missed it, but Rowan had been allowed into the fourth circle, and now, perhaps even near the fifth. And he saw the ripple. And when you are hurt, she said, you become a wall. Rowan looked away. The wolf opened one eye. I'm not a wall. No, she said. You are a very polite fortress. He almost smiled, but did not. The air between them changed. This was the first time they had touched the darker waters. Not terrible darkness, not something evil, but something guarded. And defended water does not like being named. Eleanor felt suddenly exposed. Rowan felt suddenly judged. Neither of them meant harm, but both felt hurt. And that's often how the fifth circle actually begins. Not with cruelty, but with two old protections mistaking each other for danger. But I only wanted to understand, Rowan said. And I only wanted not to be studied like a strange animal, answered Eleanor. I was not studying you. But you were naming me. No, I was seeing you. Well, perhaps I didn't ask to be seen. The words came out sharper than she intended. Rowan's face became still. There it was. The fortress, the iron gate. The wolf stood up. Then, apologize, he said. And because he was frightened, he said it coldly. Eleanor heard the coldness and felt the old jars open inside her sixth circle. Here it is, whispered the pale creature with many hands, the withdrawing, the punishment, the beginning of leaving. Her chest tightened. Do not do that, she said. Do what? Become distant and then call it respect. His eyes flashed. Do not tell me what I'm doing when I'm trying not to hurt you. I'm trying to tell you that it hurts. And I'm trying to breathe before I say something that I regret. Well, then say that. I just did. No, you made it sound like I'm impossible. Maybe, but you made it sound like I'm cruel. I did not. Yes, you did. They stood in the observatory with the moon broken into pieces around them. Neither of them shouted. It would have been easier if they had. Instead, the water between them became cold, dark, and full of things that neither could see clearly. At last, Rowan said, I should take you home. And Eleanor said, Yes, perhaps you should. The walk back was polite, which meant that it was terrible. For 3 days they did not see each other, and in those 3 days Eleanor told herself she'd been right. Then she told herself that she had been maybe too harsh. But then she told herself Rowan should have understood. And then that no one ever understood. And then she watered the herbs so aggressively that several basil plants began to fear for their lives. Meanwhile, Rowan repaired the roof of the West Bakery, chopped enough wood for a winter that had not yet been announced, and told 3 different people that he was perfectly fine. The wolf in his sixth circle paced. Fool, it growled. You asked to be loved. That's how it starts. The pale creature in Elianor's lake opened another jar. See, it whispered, nearness always becomes absence. On the fourth night, Elianor went to the canal. She did not plan to. Her feet simply took her there. The moon was thin and the water black. At the edge of the bridge, an old woman was sitting with her feet inside the water. This was unusual, because the old woman was wearing a velvet gown, 7 necklaces, and a crown made out of spoons. Eleanor considered turning around, not to speak to the crazy person, but the old woman looked at her. Too late, she said. You've already seen me. I beg your pardon? No, you don't, but I accept. Eleanor stared. Who are you? The keeper of inner waters, said the old woman. Eleanor waited, and the old woman sighed. In your grandmother's time, people knew how to recognize a magical being without asking so much explanation. Well, you have spoons in your hair. Yes, that's because I found forks more aggressive. Despite herself, Eleanor almost laughed. The old woman patted the stone beside her. Sit. I would rather not. Good. Sit anyway, Eleanor said. The canal moved below them. After a while, the old woman said, You let him near the fifth circle. Eleanor became very still. I do not know what that means. Of course you do. That's why you are pretending not to. Eleanor said nothing. The old woman dipped one toe into the water. The canal shivered. When someone comes close enough to see the dark spots in your lake, it feels like danger. But sometimes they are not creating the darkness. Sometimes they are only close enough to reveal what was already there. Eleanor swallowed. He made me feel exposed. Yes. But that doesn't mean that he was right. No. That doesn't mean that I was wrong. No. Then what does it mean? It means that someone reached the gate. Eleanor watched the moon tremble in the canal. And if I do not want him there? Well, then tell the truth and close it. And if I do? Then you just have to stop pretending that the gate is a wall. Eleanor hated this very much. So she asked, Are you always this unpleasant? Only when useful. On the same night, Rowan went to the old well behind the abandoned mill. He had no idea why. He only knew that his chest felt too full and the town had too many doors. At the well sat a boy with silver hair, bare feet, and eyes much older than his face. He was eating an apple with great seriousness. You're late, said the boy. For what? For listening. Rowan looked around. No. Yes, I'm going home. You are going in circles, said the boy. Home would be an improvement. Rowan folded his arms. The boy pointed at him with the apple. You became a fortress. I just became careful. No, you became cold. I wasn't trying to be cruel. A frozen river also doesn't slap anyone, said the boy. But it still stops the boats. Rowan didn't answer. The boy took another bite of the apple. She touched your old collar. Rowan's throat tightened. What collar? The one on the wolf. Rowan's hand closed. In his sixth circle, the wolf growled. The boy looked at him with infuriating kindness. You think if someone sees your need, they will use it against you. Rowan's voice became low. Some people do. Yes, said the boy. And some people see your need and bring water. Rowan looked into the well. Far below, the water reflected nothing. What if I need too much? Then learn to ask in cups, not in floodings. Rowan breathed out sharply. And what if she leaves? Then you will grieve. That's your wisdom. No, that's the truth. The boy finished the apple and threw the core into the well. There was no splash. But you know, if you never let anyone come close, because they might leave, he said, then the leaving has already happened. The next morning, Rowan came to Elianor's door carrying bread, a small pot of honey, and an expression of great discomfort. Elianor opened the door. They looked at each other. The first circle wanted to say, "Good morning." The second wanted to make a joke. The third wanted to explain. The fourth wanted to apologize, but in a way that protected their pride. But something deeper, tired of walking in circles, stayed quiet. At last, Rowan said, I became cold because I was afraid. Elianor gripped the edge of the door. The pale creature in her sixth circle reached for a jar. But Elianor whispered inwardly, Wait. Rowan continued slowly, as if carrying something breakable. When you said I made you feel studied, I felt ashamed, and then I felt accused, and then I wanted to disappear behind being reasonable. Elianor looked at him. And I became sharp because I felt seen before I was ready, she said. And because when you pulled back, even a little, something in me thought that you were leaving. I was not leaving. I know that now. I might need time sometimes, he said. But I can say that. I can say that I'm taking time and I'm not disappearing. And I can say when I feel exposed, instead of making you the villain for noticing, she said. They stood there with bread and honey between them, like offerings to a small domestic god. And then Elianor stepped aside. Come in, he did. That day did not solve their love. No one day ever does. But it cleaned a little bit the water, and that's not a small thing. And after that, the true intimacy began. Not the pretty part that people sing about under the balconies, the real part. The part where one person is allowed to see how the other becomes when they are hungry, afraid, ashamed, jealous, ill, proud, needy, tired, misunderstood, or just too full of their old weather. Rowan discovered that Elianor's grace sometimes covered terror, Elianor discovered that Rowan's steadiness sometimes covered loneliness. He saw that she could become distant when she needed care the most, and she saw that he could become silent when he longed to be asked to stay. He saw the black reeds in the fifth circle whispering, "Do not need too much." And she saw the carved stones in his saying, "Be useful, be easy." He saw the pale creature with many hands gathering every small hurt into jars. And she saw the wolf with the iron collar guarding the place where his need had been shamed. And because they loved each other, they could see these things. That was the strange law of inner waters. A stranger saw the face, an admirer saw the shining, a friend saw the habits, but the beloved saw the creatures. The beloved saw the little darknesses swimming near the roots of words. The beloved saw where a person lied without meaning to lie, where they defended before they were even attacked, where they asked for love by pushing it away, where they confused fear with truth, where they had become too loyal to old wounds. And this was painful. And there were days Elianor wished Rowan could return to seeing only her grace. And there were days when Rowan wished Elianor could return to admiring only his strength. But love, once it has entered the deeper circles, cannot unknow what it has seen. It can either become cruel with that knowledge, or careful and more loving. Many people choose cruelty without knowing it. They collect the beloved's secret like knives. They learn the exact words that wound, the exact silence that punishes, the exact fear that makes the other one small. But Rowan and Elianor tried to choose differently. Not always, but often enough that it mattered. When Elianor's pale creature opened its jars, Rowan learned to say, "Is this about now, or has an older sorrow joined us?" And at first, Elianor hated this question. Then she hated it less. And then sometimes she could answer, "When you said that you were tired, I heard that I was too much. I didn't mean that. I know, but something in me heard it. Can I hold your hand while you hear it differently?" And sometimes she said yes, and sometimes she said no. Both became part of the practice. And when Rowan's wolf began pacing, Elianor learned not to chase it with panic. At first, she would knock at every locked door inside him, demanding to be let inside, and this made the wolf bite. So she learned to sit near the gate and say, "I'm here. I do not need you to open everything at once, but please don't pretend that there is no gate." And sometimes Rowan opened, and sometimes he could only sit on the other side and breathe. Both became part of the practice. They learned that love didn't mean entering every circle whenever they wished. Even the beloved must knock, and even the beloved must wait sometimes. Even the beloved mustn't trample the lilies because they are eager to prove their devotion. The sixth circle was not conquered, it never is. It was entrusted. Slowly they made small rituals. When one of them was too flooded, they lit a blue candle and spoke only one sentence at a time, slowly. When one became frozen, the other made tea and didn't ask questions for 10 minutes. When one became sharp, they had to place both hands on the table and say what hurt before saying what was wrong. And when one wanted to run, they had to name whether they needed distance, silence, or maybe touch, food, or sleep. And of course, they didn't always remember. Sometimes they forgot spectacularly. Sometimes the pale creature threw jars and the wolf broke its chain, and the reeds grew black and thick, and the stones in Rowan's lake became so heavy that no words could move them. But each time, if they could, they returned. Not to pretend that nothing had happened, but to clean the water. "I'm sorry" became a bucket. I was afraid became a lantern. I need time became bridge. This is not okay became a riverbank. And I still love you became the rain that fed everything. Years passed. Not storybook years where everything difficult fades politely into gold. Real years. Years with illness, money, grief, bad weather, unfinished dreams, burnt soup, letters that were unanswered, nights of great tenderness and mornings of irritation, and of course, ordinary Tuesdays, where neither felt like creature of light at all. But slowly something changed. They did not become flawless. Elianor could still vanish behind grace, and Rowan could still retreat behind a stone. But they began to recognize the movement sooner. The masks became thinner, the circles less guarded, and the creatures in the dark rings, the pale jar keeper and the colored wolf, did not disappear. Old wounds don't disappear simply because they are seen, but they changed. The pale creature stopped hoarding every hurt and began now and then to bring one jar forward and just say, "This one's old. Do not put it into today." The wolf, whose color has rusted from tears and patient weather, sometimes lay down at the gate and allowed Rowan to speak before growling. And in the very center of each lake, the flawless creatures of the heart grew brighter. Alianor's was a white doe with silver eyes, while Rowan's was a small dragon curled around the blue flame. The first time Alianor saw Rowan's dragon, she wept. "It looks so gentle," she said. Rowan looked confused. "It's a dragon." "Yes," she said, "and that is what I mean." The first time Rowan saw Alianor's doe, he didn't speak for a long while. "What is it?" she asked, afraid. "I understand you now," he said. "What?" "Why you run so fast from anything that is harsh." And because he saw the creature clearly, he became more careful with the water around it. Not dishonest, not afraid to speak, only careful in the way that one is careful near something that is sacred. And because she saw the dragon, Alianor understood that Rowan's strength had never been hardness. It had been a small blue flame guarded for so long that even warmth felt dangerous. And this is the healing that intimacy can bring. Not that someone loves our flaws and therefore we never have to change. Not that someone sees our wounds and excuse every harm that they cause. But that someone sees the wound, the defense, the shadow, the fear, and still sees the beautiful creature behind it all. And because they see it, we begin to remember it too. And we begin to say, "I'm not only my fear, I'm not only my defense, I'm not only my mask that I made to survive, I'm not only the pain that I carry, and I'm not only the harm that I learned to expect. There is something that is untouched in me, something alive and something worthy of being met." One winter evening, many years after the lantern boats had first touched beneath the bridge, Elianor and Rowan sat beside the canal. They were older now. Not old, but older in a way people become when life has stopped asking permission before teaching them. A young couple stood across the water, speaking in beautiful voices, showing each other their brightest circles. Alianor smiled. "They are doomed," she said. Rowan looked at her. She laughed. "I mean blessed, but also doomed." "Both," said Rowan. The young woman across the canal tilted her head in a graceful way. The young man beside her stood very straight and very strong. Alianor took Rowan's hand. "Do you ever miss the beginning?" she asked. He thought about it. "The easy part?" "Yes." "No," he said. "No? I liked it, but I would not trade what we know for what we imagined back then." Eleanor looked at the water. The canal reflected the moon in broken pieces. What do we know now? Rowan rubbed his thumb over her hand. That love is not standing at the edge of someone's lake and praising the reflection. She smiled. What is it then? He looked embarrassed. He still looked embarrassed when saying beautiful things, which made them more trustworthy. It's learning where the water is deep, he said, and entering carefully. Elianor leaned her head against his shoulder. And not drowning each other. Well, that too. And not running away from frogs. Especially not the frogs. There were never frogs. There are always frogs in deep water. She laughed, and the sun moved through all 7 circles of the lake, clear to the center, where the white doe lifted her head. And in Rowan's center, the little dragon opened one blue eye and warmed the dark. Above them, the moon watched the canals of Leor and the 7 invisible circles around every passing heart. The outer circles, shining and necessary, the middle circles, warm and complicated, and the inner circles, wounded but wondrous, and the center, untouched, waiting, not for someone perfect, not for someone who would never see the darkness, but for someone who could see the darkness and still remember the light. For this is what love was in the old country, before mirrors learned to lie. Not blindness, not possession, not drowning of one soul inside another, but the brave and tender art of being allowed closer and becoming more true.